Picture this. You're sitting in your room in Pakistan, and you decide to send a quick message to a friend in the United States. You tap send, and literally less than a second later, your screen says delivered. Have you ever actually stopped to wonder how that message just crossed more than 12,000 kilometers almost instantly? Well, welcome to this explainer. We're going to jump right in today because we are uncovering the hidden infrastructure that keeps our entire modern world spinning. We're going to explore exactly how the internet travels across the ocean, and trust me, the reality is way more fascinating than anything out of a sci-fi movie. So let's start with a really basic question. When you hit send on that message, or when you stream a movie or, initiate an international bank transfer, did that data fly through space? Did a satellite carry it all the way around the Earth? Because if you were to ask most people how information travels from one continent to another, they'd probably say satellites. And it completely makes sense, right? Our phones use GPS satellites, our TVs use satellites. So naturally, it's just incredibly common to assume that the internet works the exact same way. But the reality completely shatters that space myth. Over 99% of the world's international internet traffic does not travel through satellites. We're talking only a tiny 1% sliver going up into space. Why? Well, because satellites are simply too slow and way too expensive for the sheer massive amount of data we demand every single second. Think about it. Millions of YouTube videos, thousands of Twitch streams, millions of WhatsApp messages happening right this second. If all of that data had to travel 36,000 kilometers up into space and then 36,000 kilometers back down, the delay would be totally unbearable. So instead of beaming our data up into the sky, engineers decided to send it downward, straight into the ocean. Section 1, the hidden web. What we're really talking about here isn't some magical cloud in the sky. It's a massive, tangible, physical network built by humans. It is, absolutely without exaggeration, one of the greatest engineering projects ever undertaken by our species, and it's hiding in a place very few people ever think about. The scale of what we're dealing with is just mind-bending. 1.5 million kilometers. Right now, beneath the waves, there are more than 1.5 million kilometers of submarine fiber optic cables stretching across the pitch-black ocean floor. If you took all these cables and placed them end to end, they'd wrap around the Earth dozens of times. They connect North America to Europe, Asia to Australia, Africa to Europe. Nearly every single continent is tethered together by this giant invisible web. Every time you fire up Netflix or play an online game with a friend overseas, you are directly utilizing this underwater highway. Let's track exactly how this happens in the real world. Going back to our example, imagine you're sending that photo from Lahore to New York. The moment you press send, your phone doesn't magically beam a signal all the way to America. First, it hops onto your local Wi-Fi or your mobile network. Then it travels to your internet service provider, zooming through local and regional fiber optic cables. Eventually, it arrives at what's called a coastal landing station. Now, from the outside, this is usually a completely ordinary-looking, boring building near the coast. But inside, it's the ultimate gateway. Here, your photo literally enters the ocean cable and begins the fastest part of its journey, racing thousands of kilometers to another landing station on the opposite side of the world, before hitting local networks and finally popping up on your friend's phone. Section 2, inside the cable, light and glass. Okay, so how does your digital photo actually survive the crushing depths of the ocean? When people hear the phrase underwater cable, they usually picture this giant, massive pipeline, sort of like a huge water main, but that is far from reality. The core of these cables, the actual part carrying your internet, is incredibly delicate. We are talking about fiber optics. These are ultra-pure strands of glass, each one roughly the thickness of a single human hair. Just think about that. And because this glass is so unbelievably fragile, it has to be surrounded by heavy-duty protective layers. We're talking waterproof gel, steel wires, copper insulation, and a really tough outer coating. It's a profound contrast. You've got this hair-thin piece of glass, armored well enough to survive for decades beneath the crushing pressure and harsh conditions of the deep sea. Now here is the absolute coolest part of this explainer. Your internet does not travel through these underwater cables as electricity. It travels as actual physical light. Inside these glass fibers, tiny lasers are flashing on and off billions of times every single second. These flashes represent binary code, the ones and zeros that computers speak. Think of it kind of like being in a pitch-black room and quickly clicking a flashlight on and off in a really specific pattern to send a secret code to a friend. That is exactly what is happening at the bottom of the ocean, just on a microscopic, unimaginably fast scale. And just how fast are we talking? 200,000 kilometers per second. These pulses of light race through the glass fibers at about 2/3 the speed of light in a vacuum. That speed is exactly why you can jump on a video call with someone across the globe and hear their voice almost instantly. And incredibly, a single modern cable isn't just carrying your one video call. It is simultaneously carrying millions of calls, emails, financial trades, and movie streams. It is an invisible superhighway where billions of pieces of data travel side by side as light without ever crashing into one another. Section 3. Constructing the web. Knowing how it works is one thing, but how on earth do we actually get these fragile glass superhighways down to the bottom of the ocean in the first place? It's a massive logistical triumph. It requires some of the most specialized ships ever built by humans. First, engineers spend months surveying the ocean floor just to avoid underwater volcanoes, mountains, and coral reefs. Next, thousands of kilometers of cable are carefully coiled inside enormous storage tanks on a specialized cable-laying ship. As the ship slowly crosses the ocean, the cable is gently released into the deep sea. When they get close to the coastline, where things get a bit more crowded with boats and activity, special underwater machines actually dig narrow trenches into the seabed to bury the cable for extra protection. It takes weeks, sometimes months, and costs hundreds of millions of dollars to lay just one single cable. Yet, we just keep adding more every year because our global hunger for data basically never stops.
Section 4. Hazards of the T.
But what happens when the physical internet actually breaks? First, we have to address the most famous myth out there. You've probably seen the viral headlines on this. Do sharks really bite internet cables? Well, surprisingly, yes, but not quite the way Hollywood makes it seem. Years ago, some sharks were actually attracted to the electromagnetic field surrounding older cables, and they'd occasionally take a bite out of curiosity. However, engineers quickly adapted, adding much stronger protective layers. So today, a shark bite taking down your internet is extremely, extremely rare. So what are the real threats then? Honestly, they're surprisingly mundane. The biggest causes of cable breaks are just fishing trawlers, dragging heavy equipment, ship anchors accidentally snagging the lines, and natural disasters like underwater earthquakes and landslides. And believe it or not, these breaks happen fairly often. But your internet rarely goes down because the whole system is incredibly resilient. Traffic is instantly rerouted through other cables, while specialized repair ships are dispatched to the scene. They literally lift the broken cable up from the ocean floor, cut out the damaged part, splice in a brand new section of glass, and drop it right back down. Now, you might be wondering, who owns all this? Who on earth is paying hundreds of millions of dollars to lay and repair these cables? It's not a single country. It's actually a mix of telecommunications companies, governments, and increasingly major tech giants. We're talking Google, Meta, Microsoft, and Amazon. They have invested billions into building and maintaining this infrastructure because at the end of the day, their massive cloud services, social networks, and video platforms absolutely depend on these fast, reliable global connections to actually function.
Section 5. Humanity's greatest invisible achievement.
We've covered the geography, the incredible science of the light, the massive ships, and the repair crews. Let's bring this all together to reflect on what this truly represents. I absolutely love this quote because it perfectly summarizes the sheer wonder of this entire ecosystem. Hidden beneath the waves is a network that quietly connects billions of people every single day. Without it, the modern world would come to a standstill. The next time you tap your phone to send a message to someone far away, take a moment to realize what's actually happening. Your message is shooting across cities, hitting a coastal gateway, and racing as a literal pulse of light through a hair-thin glass fiber at the bottom of the dark ocean, reaching the other side of the planet in less than a second. It is everyday magic hiding right in plain sight. And that is the beauty of exploring how things work. There are so many incredible technologies that we just take for granted every single day, right up until we finally peel back the layers to understand the brilliant engineering behind them. I want to leave you with a question to spark your curiosity today. What piece of technology have you always wondered about? Think about the things you use daily that feel a little bit like magic. Keep asking questions, keep wanting to learn, and maybe your question will be the subject of our next explainer. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the underwater web.